Late at night, an elderly man named Patrick finds himself alone in his trailer, the soft glow of the radio illuminating the space as he sips from a small glass of liquor resting on the table. A romantic tune fills the air, prompting memories of a young woman who once gazed into his car through the cascading rain. Outside, thunder rumbles ominously, and a heavy downpour begins, echoing the vivid recollections in his mind. Patrick's gaze drifts to a vial of clear liquid, but he ultimately sets it aside. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminates the night, followed by a loud knock at his door. Startled, Patrick glances toward the entrance and calls out for the visitor to leave, but the knocking persists. Moments later, a woman's voice calls out, pleading to be let in. After a brief moment of uncertainty, Patrick opens the door to reveal a drenched young woman seeking a ride into town. His car is parked just outside the trailer. He surveys his kitchen before stepping aside to allow her entry. The woman, soaked and shivering, steps inside but declines the towel he offers, insisting she only needs to get to town. Curious, Patrick asks how she ended up there at such a late hour, but all she can say is that she ran. He informs her that his car is out of commission and he can't assist her. Unfortunately, there are no buses running at this time either. He apologizes for not answering the door sooner, explaining that local kids often play tricks by knocking and then running away. The woman notices the glass on the table. Patrick suggests she take off her wet sweater to help it dry. She insists she won't be there long and asks to use the phone, but Patrick seems to overlook her request, expressing surprise at her claim of having been swimming at the beach. He glances at her bare, muddy feet, confused. The beach is quite a distance from here. He gestures for her to sit down, recognizing that she clearly needs a moment to rest. With a hint of hesitation, the woman settles into a chair, and Patrick offers her a cup of tea. She declines once more, expressing a desire for a cigarette, but Patrick has none to offer. He sets a cup of tea in front of her anyway. She repeats her request for a taxi, explaining that she's nearby but prefers not to walk in the current weather. Patrick quickly realizes she's not from around here. The swimming season has long passed due to the chill, and storms like this are typically a summer occurrence. Instead, Patrick suggests some alcohol, but she remains focused on her need for a phone. He gives her some coins, clarifying that he doesn't own a mobile device. She would need to find a payphone. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a trek, located beyond the park gates, which are locked at night. He adds that the locals can be quite strange, filled with apprehension, much like himself. Grateful for his assistance, the woman prepares to leave, not wanting to impose further, but Patrick reminds her that she'll need to wait for the park to open. Reluctantly, she agrees to stay and wait for her clothes to dry. As she stands, she begins to explore the room, asking various questions, which Patrick answers with care. He reveals that he grew up by the coast and moved to the city in his 20s. While exploring, she discovers a few feminine items on a dresser. She picks up a small watch and confesses that she's also unemployed, feeling perpetually unlucky, a sentiment they both share. However, Patrick disagrees, sharing that he worked as an electrician until a shocking incident with a light socket forced him to quit. After such a jarring experience, the monotony of routine work lost its charm. He reflects on how people are drawn to danger, seeking excitement through risky activities like skydiving. Meanwhile, the woman finds a locket containing a lock of hair. Patrick continues to ponder the human attraction to risk before inquiring about her accommodations. The woman responds with ambiguous replies, raising Patrick's suspicions. She insists she has never visited this place before, yet Patrick finds her face strangely recognizable. He takes a locket from her and suggests she warm up with a shower, noticing her shivering. Reluctantly, she agrees and makes her way to the bathroom. Once behind the closed door, still cautious of Patrick, she examines her reflection in the mirror, adjusting an earring. Then, she steps into the shower. Suddenly, she sees the water cascading down her body, turning murky, mixed with streaks of blood, swirling down the drain. In a panic, she hears Patrick knocking, offering her a towel. As the water clears, she peeks out from behind the shower curtain and spots the towel hanging on the door. Glancing back in the mirror, her forehead appears unblemished, with no trace of injury. Meanwhile, Patrick is busy heating soup on the stove and offers her a dry sweater, mentioning it once belonged to an ex-girlfriend. He reassures her that he is single and that she can keep the sweater. The woman confesses that she is also alone, struggling to manage on her own, which is why she has distanced herself from family. She describes herself as independent, someone who is attracted to danger, only to regret her choices later. Patrick pours a thick, red soup into a bowl, taken aback by her self-awareness. He remarks that most women tend to blame others for their misfortunes. Suddenly, she expresses regret about staying late at work to lock the gates. This revelation alarms Patrick, especially when he notices her earring. She moves to the couch with the soup, but she doesn't touch it. Instead, she inquires about Patrick's nighttime habits. He confesses to suffering from insomnia. He explains that aging has brought restless nights filled with nightmares, unlike his childhood, when sleep came easily even after watching scary cartoons. As he cleans the pot, he observes the water turning red and thick, resembling blood. Patrick contemplates how nightmares intertwine with reality, flooding the mind with dread and igniting a desire to escape or retreat into blissful dreams. A flash of lightning illuminates the night, prompting the woman to wonder how she managed to enter when the park gates were secured. Patrick shares her curiosity. Just then, another knock echoes at the door, and Patrick inquires who might have known she was visiting it. The woman, looking confused, insists she hasn't informed anyone. When Patrick opens the door, he finds no one there. Outside, rain lashes down, the wind roars, and thunder rumbles. He explains that the children from the trailer park often enjoy playing pranks on him, knocking and then darting away. As he steps back to the sink, the woman keeps her gaze on the door, recalling that she thought she saw him lock it earlier. Meanwhile, Patrick discreetly retrieves a vial of an unknown substance, studying it intently. The woman notices his boots resting by the couch and, in a moment of whimsy, pours her soup into them. Suddenly, the lights flicker and go out, enveloping the trailer in darkness. Patrick switches on a flashlight and scans the ceiling, sensing that someone might be moving above. He theorizes that a tree could have fallen on the power lines, which means she'll have to stay a bit longer. Though he considers checking outside, he hesitates to wear the soup-filled boots. Feeling a bit awkward, the woman admits that her imagination has run wild with frightening thoughts, leaving her feeling embarrassed. Patrick reassures her, making it clear that she is welcome to leave whenever she wishes. He moves to inspect the circuit breakers, and the woman follows, using the flashlight to light their path. As Patrick opens the relay box, he shares a childhood memory of being frightened by his father during a blackout. The woman's gaze falls on a toolbox, and she suddenly spots blood on a hammer. However, when she directs the light at it, the hammer appears clean and dry. Then, she notices scratches on Patrick's back that are bleeding and offers to get first aid supplies to tend to his wounds. In the bathroom, she searches through the cabinet and discovers a vial holding her missing earring, among various women's items. Panic sets in as she attempts to replace the earring, only to accidentally let it slip down the drain. She feels a presence lurking behind the shower curtain. Overwhelmed with fear, she yanks it open, revealing an empty bathtub. Meanwhile, Patrick drifts into a memory of a rain-soaked car ride. The woman emerges from the bathroom, announcing her intention to leave. Patrick tries to persuade her to stay, suggesting they wait out the storm and play a game of cards. He confesses he only knows one game. "I doubt it," she replies. However, she quickly demands to know why he has her earring. Feeling insulted, Patrick accuses her of prying into matters that don't concern her. The woman insists she was merely trying to understand the situation and firmly states her decision to leave. She requests the key, eager to return home. Confused, Patrick asks what frightened her so deeply. What had he done wrong? He welcomed her in, offered her warmth, and provided drinks. Yet she responds with accusations. He reflects on how women often enter his life only to disrupt it. What was her purpose here? The woman begins to shout for the key, but Patrick calmly informs her that the door is not locked. She tests the door and finds it indeed open. Mortified by her unfounded outburst, she chooses to stay. Patrick shuffles the cards for "I doubt it," jokingly suggesting she could pour alcohol into his sneakers if she wanted. For the first time that evening, a smile breaks across her face. Patrick finds himself pondering where he might have encountered her before. The woman muses that as people grow older, all the women they've known begin to resemble one another. United by their shared struggles, they are all fleeing from something. While they engage in playful banter, Patrick entertains her with funny anecdotes about his neighbors living near the park's entrance. In response, she reveals that she has been avoiding reality, and confronting her own imperfections. She admits to having been at a bar before the storm hit. Patrick recalls her mentioning the beach, but in the spirit of their game, he feigns disbelief. He then confesses that he fabricated a story about the sweater. He recounts how he first met his late wife at a gas station, where she asked him to buy her a bag of chips. Initially, he assumed she was homeless, but she was actually well-dressed with impeccably clean hair. He bought her the chips, and they shared a quiet moment together, eating in silence. Tragically, she later succumbed to an overdose. In truth, no one had visited his home for a long time. He expresses gratitude for her presence, saying it makes him feel alive. As he pours more into her glass, she raises it to drink, only to spot a lipstick stain on the rim, stirring her suspicions once more. The storm grows fiercer, prompting Patrick to step outside. Suddenly, she hears a phone vibrating. Following the sound to a back room, she discovers a phone resting on a bed where a deceased woman lies beneath the sheets. Panic sets in as she attempts to hide, planning to escape through a small window in the storage room, intending to break it with a hammer she had previously thought was stained with blood. However, when she picks up the hammer, it appears to be bloody again. Realizing her only escape route is through the door, she exits the storage room and collides with Patrick, who swiftly captures and restrains her. He forces her mouth open and compels her to drink a mysterious liquid. She fights back, but Patrick drags her to the bedroom and throws her onto the bed beside the lifeless woman. As she desperately struggles to free her hands and escape through the small window, Patrick begins to speak at length about the woman lying there. She had requested chips and willingly climbed into his car. And what about the woman now? What did she anticipate by arriving at a stranger's house in the dead of night? He claims that fate has no role in this. It all boils down to choices. The woman feels herself slipping into unconsciousness. Patrick confesses that he administered an illegal substance, one that will soon take her life. He recalls the first woman he killed, who approached him during a storm on the beach asking for a lift. He can still picture the tattoo on her ribs, even though her face has faded from his memory. Today, he boasts, he's been fortunate. 2 kills in a single night. No one will ever find out. He insists that sin is merely a fabrication. There is no deity, only a conscience that can be disregarded. As the woman loses consciousness, Patrick covers her face and waits for her to perish, once again reminiscing about the stormy beach. Suddenly, he spots a tattoo on her chest and, with growing dread, realizes she is the same woman he murdered years ago. Caught in a nightmare, Patrick is faced with all the women he has killed. They fill his home, drinking, bathing, and mocking him. He is abruptly engulfed in darkness, hearing the chilling sound of his father's ventilator, a noise that tormented him in his childhood. Emerging from the shadows, soaked in blood and despair, he finds himself surrounded by his victims as the sound of police knocking at the door intensifies. His latest victim steps from the shadows, compelling him to pour the contents of the vial into a bottle and drink it. The other women cheer him on, pushing him toward madness. Then, everything comes to a halt. Patrick opens his eyes to discover there was no storm, no woman. It was all just a figment of his imagination. Another knock echoes at the door, and as he swings it open, he catches a glimpse of children darting off. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out an empty vial, chuckling as he comes to the realization that he had consumed the solution in a state of delirium. He steps back inside and secures the door. A short while later, a loud thump reverberates through the room, the sound of his body collapsing to the ground.